we went to Amsterdam and we did 2 museums in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
First one we did was Rijksmuseum.
Mm-hmm.
So Rijksmuseum. It was 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, you know, all the centuries.
It was old.
It was older. It was you know, it was historic. It was more.
There you go.
It was more historic museum.
Yeah.
And those are just so interesting.
They're not for you.
I don't think so. I think it's eerie.
You've been to the Met.
I don't know if did I enjoy the Met?
I've never seen you not enjoy the Met.
Well, I mean, I enjoy the museums, even if I'm not like into the work that's there. I enjoy them anyway. It's
I
fun
will
to
say,
see.
I mean, obviously it's from Amsterdam,
Yeah.
so they're going to highlight their artists. There was a big emphasis on Rembrandt.
Yes.
No
Which, of
shade
course,
on
I mean, he's
Rembrandt. Amazing
incredible.
painter.
Yeah.
Just a little dark and moody. And
That
then there
really
was just a
big
lot
piece,
of it.
That really big piece that they had there from Rembrandt was actually pretty cool.
No museums in Amsterdam are free that I know of when I did my
Yeah, that was
research.
fun. But
So-
I think the funniest thing, and if you ever, just please take a look at this, specifically like 1500s, 1600s, just look at paintings from that time. And you'll see a painting of a family, and everybody in the family, woman,
They all have the
Father.
man's face.
children, the baby, they're all gonna have adult faces.
The
and it's gonna be
dog.
the same face.
The dog.
There was a dog that had an adult
human's
face.
face.
They couldn't do faces.
Yeah.
I think it was.
But what do you think was the evolution of
they
it?
did the
Because
scenery-
faces were faces.
I think they did the scenery really well. Like they focused really heavily on that. It looks
Mm-hmm.
beautiful around them. But I think when it comes to the faces, they were just like, okay, well, I'm not gonna have.
Well, you guys
stand
are all
here.
related, so you must.
I'm not gonna have you
must
stand
all look
here
like
until
this.
I'm not gonna have you stand here until we're done painting all of your
Did
faces
it based on
individually.
memory?
Let's just we'll do this, and they all just so happen to look the same. Like they just used the same technique for all of the faces, and it just made them so similar.
That actually
Really
circles back because have you heard the theory that the Mona Lisa,
Mm-hmm.
which Leonardo da Vinci painted, is like his face or looks like him? I don't know if I have that correct, but I think that's what it is. And if you think about going back to what I was saying, like, oh, they just painted the man's face. Because those women didn't fully look like separate from the husband.
Yeah, sometimes they were
So-
like, "Are you related?"
So
It's either they were related or which
maybe
is a high
that was just like a
probability.
thing. Or maybe that's
just
just
look the
how women looked like before.
I would hope that some of them looked different. The bulby eye, like the eyes were crazy.
proportions were...
They had they were
Proportions.
struggling, but there were some. But what was cool about that is that when you saw one that was like really good, you're like, oh, that's crazy.
Well, so to contrast to the next museum we'll
Yes.
talk about, right? So I think one of the things that older paintings do that not many artists do now is the scale of the craft, right?
Yeah,
So some of the ones that you liked more of the older styles were the bigger ones.
The big ones, massive ones are so
The degree of which
Scenery.
the painter did not only the accuracy of the setting, but the magnificence,
cool. Yeah,
right?
a lot of the war. There's a lot of war.
Yeah, there was a lot of war. Maybe that was another
That
thing
was
that we
kind of
didn't
their
really
thing
like.
back then. That's what they did for fun, for sport. That was war.
Yeah.
So
And we still do that.
the big ones they were majestic, yeah. And something that I guess when that connection was made, I think is when we went to the was it Straat
Yeah.
Straat Museum, which is graffiti.
And like mural.
Yeah. So like
Street art, mural,
Street art, graffiti.
graffiti art.
that
all
was
modern.
by far my favorite museum ever.
Yeah. Well,
Oh my God, it was so
everything was essentially an entire what would be like a wall.
Yeah.
Whether it's
So
on a building or
it was a warehouse.
Yeah.
Just massive empty
massive warehouse.
Yeah, warehouse.
And the NDSM wharf. You have to take a ferry ride to get there, but
cute,
it's
pretty
free.
cute.
And it's basically, like a hub for street art, murals, and it was just really cool to see modern art to the scale, but also like graffiti art.
Graffiti
Art
that's
in a way
yeah.
that's not so typical.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
how we see
Not like New York graffiti.
Yeah, like
what the graffiti you see on like the streets
text
or whatever. No,
or
it's
characters.
like yeah.
It was essentially graffiti artists who were doing like fine paintings to like portraits.
Full on design. Like
Yeah, and you couldn't even
crazy
tell
stuff.
that it was graffiti. Like you can't even
Oftentimes.
see the spray.
Which is like wild to think about. I don't know how they get it so precise, but I mean, that's the
I mean, I
skill.
guess you just have to go closer.
One of the most incredible things I've ever seen, this really stuck with me, and it's going to stick with me for a very long time. You walk to the middle of the museum, and they had a truck hanging upside down from the ceiling.
From chains.
A real truck. And it was tagged on the sides. And it's like, that was so genius, bringing the street like into the building. And with the scale of the building, you could have a truck and it fits.
You could
perfectly.
have had a 14-wheeler.
You could have probably 18-wheeler.
It would have been, oh, sorry.
No, yeah.
From the ceiling to the bottom.
That's how, and when you went under it, there was like a person that was in there.
Yeah.
And it was like all the stuff was falling onto the windshield. Yeah. So it looked like they were actually.
But the truck was actually had art on it.
It was tagged. Yeah, it was tagged on the sides. And I was just like,